really want to welcome you back to Byron. We love having you here.
Thanks, Jan.
And I want to acknowledge the Writers' Festival and Chris Hanley, who's here tonight, to really thank the Writers' Festival for inviting Bob to come here. And I hope everyone's going to go along to our favourite festival. And thank you. I'm not sure where he is. He was up the back before, but yeah, having you at the Writers' Festival is very special. It is a great event, and I'm sure you'll be the highlight. I wanted to start off by obviously thanking you for your years of service and inspiration to the nation, but also talking about what just happened in terms of the leadership transition. The fact that you were able to do something that made us all feel proud, watching a political party hand over without all that nastiness, without the public brawl. It was done very respectfully and with great dignity. So how does that work? And is that just about the Greens or?
Oh, well, thanks, Jan, and thanks for the friendship over all these years since, way back in the...
You were here 20 years ago.
20 years ago,
yeah.
and more. The leadership transition was something I'd been starting to think about for some time and talked over with Paul. We really couldn't talk with much beyond that because these days of instant communications, the word would have got around. And what would have happened then was that the media, not least the Murdoch media, would have not only started speculating on why I was getting out. They said it was because they finally fixed on, after they did hear about it, that it was because the carbon tax was coming in on July the 1st, and I was running for it.
But scared.
Scared. And just before the event, I spoke with my Chief of Staff, Ben Oquist, and Christine Milne, of course. And then I went into the party room meeting, which we were in... Paul and I went to the Global Greens Conference in Senegal. That's on the westernmost part of Africa, closest to Brazil. And at Dakar, there were 83 Greens parties there. This is the third Global Greens Conference, and they've been generated out of Australia to a large degree. But at that conference, I was just sitting there and I passed Paul a note saying, I think a week and 6 days to go. Finally made the decision that at the next party room meeting I was going to go, and Paul, a bit like Trunky Creek Public, Paul handed me back a note in the back row which said, "Thank goodness." He knew what it meant. So we got together, and I just put it where the party room was going to discuss economic policy and other things in the budget, and I just led off in the party room by saying, my time has come. I've decided to stand down from the leadership. And there was an instant, we're a family group in there, but there was an instant look of, I can't quite describe it, came across all my colleagues. But they very quickly, there was no fight back on that. They very quickly accepted it, as you do when you're human beings who know each other. And I put it to the first thing that would be a vote for my replacement, Jan. And Christine was nominated by one of the younger senators straight off, and we went round and everybody wanted Christine to be the next leader, so there was no vote on it. It was totally unanimous. And we determined that therefore the deputy leadership would be vacant, and that would be voted. There were a number of people who were going to stand for deputy leadership. We'd have that in the afternoon, and we did that. I've watched politics for many years. I do go back to Ben Chifley, and I've seen people stay too long. I just think it was John Howard had that massive era of November the year before the last election, the 2007 election, of deciding to stay on, and it will have cost him a lot of heartache and misery that didn't turn out the way it should have. And I'm not too concerned about the political fallout, but what really motivated me, Jan, was being here, being out of the cage and getting involved in actively in all the things that are really important. Somebody just we were just talking about that. I've never been minister for anything because I've been in the wrong party to do that so far. There will be Green ministers and Prime Ministers down the line, but not yet. Just the same as who could have dreamt there'd be Green mayors ever? And look at it. And hopefully more to come. So that's going very well. And there are a brilliant lot of people in that Greens party room. They'll have their difficulties and their problems, but I feel really great about that. So time had come, and Paul and I will get a bit more time together, and we've got lots of things we enjoy doing and want to like travelling at the moment, and we'll continue to do that. I've got a bit of poetry, I've got a bit of music. That little booklet out there, you'll see a very simplistic Earth song in the back of that, which I wrote when I was 16 at Bellingen. And I put words to it when I was 66. You know, we have... well, we've got anthems for every country on the planet, but none for the planet itself. So it was time it had one, and I hope somebody comes up with something better. But lots of good things to do, and so...
So you're not going to be bored?
No.
I get the feeling that you're going to actually be released from some of the constraints of being a parliamentarian and having to go to Canberra and do all that, the freedom of retirement.
And let's face it, Jan, the nastiness, the pettiness...
No, I was going to ask about that.
And the Murdoch media.
The Murdoch media. Well, seeing as you've brought it up, what can you tell us, the inside story with the Australian? What did you do to them? And have I left it? I've been amazed over the years, this continual thing of, look at this, 1996, the Green Menace. This guy, you know. And then, I didn't bring it out. It's on the wall out there, another one that the Bulletin did, 5 or 6 years later. The Green Monster. What is it that they fear about you? Why the attacks? What is it about?
Janice Jane, as Machiavelli said back in the 17th century, if you want to change the world, get ready to be dropped on from a great height by the people who've got the money and the power.
It's never happened to me.
And you'll know. So if you're going to be change, and all good change has been met with stiff resistance and hate and destructiveness very often. So we've got going pretty well as far as the Greens are concerned. And when you see it in that light, you don't worry too much about them. And
do you read them?
No. Yes, I do, but I never pay. I never buy an Australian. I am resistant to putting whatever it is in Rupert's pockets.
Yeah.
I did get asked why I broke my commitment to... I said a couple of years ago, when they were hounding me about when I was going to get out, that I was going to stay in, because Rupert had just had his 80th birthday and I was going to stay. He was my role model. And then they asked me, when I resigned, first press conference, you said you were going to stay there as long as Rupert Murdoch, and now you're not. Why not? And I simply said, well, I've looked at what's happened to him in the last 18 months and decided I'd get out.
Yeah, good answer. And when you talk about that nastiness, and okay, the media does the attack, I mean, the media, as I think Lindsay Tanner put quite well in his book about the spin cycle, the 24/7, the cut down in numbers of people doing the real role of journalism. Are they pressured or are they lazy? What's going on with their focus on the negative, not just for you and the Greens, but for everything? The negative message is out there so strongly, whereas, as you said, we're all about the positive, but it's hard to get a positive message out there.
I think, Jan, behind it is the big money. When you live in Canberra, you see the coal industry, for example, has got a big glass office block just across the way from Parliament House. They're over there all the time in Aussie's coffee shop. They're around all the offices. They've got entree. The Prime Minister herself has said, Penny Wong said, as Minister for Energy there for some years, she's seen every coal company in Australia. And they're 80% foreign owned. That's a statistic. the reality of it. So when it came to them paying, what Treasury recommended was a tax, a super profits tax. Only when they make huge profits would they get taxed. They resisted it, and the Greens ended up the only people backing Treasury. We were the Conservatives. And they came to town, and they went to town on Kevin Rudd and then on Julia, and got that wound back, and had Tony Abbott saying he would remove any, and he still says he'll remove any mining tax. So there's $100 billion over the next 10 years won't be there for schools and hospitals because of that. And all that, the majority of that money is just going to flow overseas untaxed. But they're hugely powerful. And the media, and not least the Murdoch media, has a symbiosis with them. Rupert is one of the richest men in the world. He's been certainly one of the most powerful people in the world. I think that's why Gina likes the look of it and is moving in for her slice of the same power. And Lang Hancock, her dad, Gina sent me a book recently, a year or two ago, about her father's career, written by his fellow iron ore discoverer in Western Australia, and said, Senator Brown, you should read this book. So I thanked her for the book. I wrote back, I'd never heard from Gina before, and I sent her my Earth book, and said, it's got some nice pictures. It takes 4.5 minutes to read, Gina. I hope you will read this. But I've never heard back.
You didn't?
No.
I write back to her, send her one from Byron. The strangeness of the media doing that, but they also reflect on and reflect to us, the politicians, the whole parliamentary process. Is that as bad when you're in there as it appears on the media? I mean, is it that question time that we all see and we think politicians are totally adversarial?
It's worse.
It's worse.
Yeah, it is. It's petty. It's small-minded. People are nice to each other in the corridor. I had no valedictory when I left Parliament. Normally they have speeches about what a good fellow you are. Because I just simply wasn't going to have people who've abused me for 16 years getting up and saying what a good fellow he was. And you know, Eric Abetz was behind having Christine and I put to the Privileges Committee on corruption, and that cost us $70,000 for lawyers. It's a court which can send you to jail for 6 months in the last few months. Only reported in the Australian, Brown and Milne up for corruption. The Privileges Committee, which has Liberals and Labor as well as one crossbencher on it, threw it out. There was no case. Yeah. But we're still left with the bill, and we're still left with the headlines, and it was all concocted. Eric keeps a file on other members of Parliament, and I'm saying this in public. And it's a very, very nasty system, and that's why I'm so proud of working with the group of MPs I have worked with, because they're good, caring people. And J.K. Galbraith is right though, Jan. We get the politicians we vote for, and they reflect the community we are. That's the reality of it. And when people come up to me and say, "Oh, I don't vote Green, but," and I've got a car sticker saying I'm not a greenie, but if you want one.
What about when they say, "I gave you my support, I gave you number 2"?
Yes. And I just say, well, you voted for destruction of the forest, you'll vote for the Woodside gas rig, you vote for no help going to Sea Shepherd down there, you're voting for the coal seam gas, you're voting, you know, on and on it goes. But that's the reality. We have a vote and we're responsible for it.
But that's the sad thing, I think, that people rely on the media to be informed about politics when they can go and read Hansard. If you ever have trouble getting to sleep, you can go online and you can actually read the debates. They're all recorded, word for word. And some of them are actually really interesting reading when you get to hear the things that are said, whether it's the negative or sometimes the surprising positive stuff that will come. And like we recently had in the New South Wales Parliament with the Kate Fairman, Green members' motion on same-sex marriage. Some of the most conservative people, the National Party people, stood up and spoke about their community, their family, their personal experience, and it was so surprising.
Yes.
And they're the moments where, when you read the whole thing rather than just read a small grab in the paper. But Hansard, why people don't go and actually check themselves on the record what's been said, who did what, how they voted. And it's a good read. I've got a room full of them that I'm hoping to donate to the library from 95 to about 2004. But that's a strange thing that I find so often, that people rely on the media, even though they know that it's rubbish. But they form their views that way. So what's going wrong that we're not able to...
Oh, well, they may do, but we may all do, but we're responsible for it.
I don't think we do.
We can't... I'm not one who lets people off the hook very readily on that. We vote for what we get, and we get what we vote for. And if we want shooting in national parks, we get it. And I'm sure it didn't get covered, but we warned about what was going to happen to the environment there. If we vote for mega coal mines in Queensland, which Ginas and Clives, amongst others, each single coal mine producing, when it's burnt overseas, that coal, more greenhouse gases than the whole of the current Queensland economy, including thermal power stations. So people voted for that. That's what people are going to get. And 6 mega coal ports inside the Great Barrier Reef. And if we don't hasten to tell Canberra that it's a vote change, we'll have the world's biggest gas factory on the coast of the Kimberley. But as I said earlier, when people changed their vote on the Franklin was saved.
Yep.
And it's a very potent thing.
It's amazing that you can stay positive because it is a struggle for some, but that point of, for the last 25 years, and during the Franklin, the Greens and the environment movement had the moral compass, and now we've seen years of greenwashing and everyone's sustainable and all of that. What's been achieved? What are the positives from the struggle, the movement? You know, getting all those people elected.
Yeah, I've been seeing a bit of kids in schools. When I was at school, the word environment didn't crop up, but there's kids working on projects all over the place, and that next generation coming up sees the environment as critical. And they're also working on human justice things, and mass communications mean we do know what's going on in Rwanda, for example. Paul and I are going to Rwanda in November because that's a fledgling democracy after the genocide, simply because the last Greens conference there was broken up by people. People's legs were smashed, and they're too scared to hold another one. So we're going over to, I'll give a talk just like this over in Rwanda, and it'll make it safe because there's a visiting senior politician from somewhere else. And you know, as you go down the line, you see there's things that you can do you couldn't do before, but I see these kids full of wisdom about the environment that I didn't have back then, and I think, wait till they get to 67. Sure, some will fall by the wayside, and sure, some will do other things, but the outlook's pretty good there, and that's not just happening in our region. It's everywhere. It's in China. It's in South Africa. And as I said earlier, it's whether the intelligent revolution that's coming down the line will beat the catastrophe. And I'm all in favour of the IR.
Good. Well, that leads me to the craziness that's been going on recently with all the attacks on the Greens from the ALP. What's their problem? I mean, they maintain that we were okay when we were only on about the environment, but we've always been on about social and economic justice. So...
Yes, well, the answer to the ALP is just take our policies over and get rid of us. I mean, that would be the best outcome. Their problem...
But we've stolen from them.
Yeah. If only. But diversity, people should have more... The ALP wants us to be a faction, and we don't behave in that fashion. And when we don't behave in that fashion, they don't get it very well. But that's fine. There's wonderful people in the ALP as there are in the other parties. But there's a change going on here, and 100 years ago people were saying exactly the same thing about the ALP. Who were these people who had no economic literacy, who were coming to take over, and with union backing, coming to take over seats in Parliament. They should mind their own business. But they didn't, and that revolution has helped the world by recognising that we had to be a more socially just community through the last century. Now the challenge is not about the debate of whether we should have a centralised or a market economy. It's about whether we should have the ecological preservation of life systems on this planet made second to rampant extraction and destruction. And the answer is pretty obvious, but it's a bit hard to get used to by a system that's simply used to valuing everything through dollars. And as you know, Jan, there's a lot of work being done on alternative economics now. London School of Economics has got a whole group working on a sustainable system of economics which gives us prosperity without destruction. And the various efforts being made around the world. So that's central to the future, that we do move to a steady state on the planet, but an economy that's still producing creative marvels and making everybody alive and using their creative genius and fascinated by the new things that we produce without further destroying the limited reserves of resources we have.
I was surprised. Not long ago I found from the British Parliament they produced a series of reports on valuing the environment, and this was the Parliament doing it, not the politicians but the actual Parliament and committee system, and valuing the environment because of the threat of destruction by development. And they're saying, well, no, that lake and that field, they're of value. And we did it 12 years ago here with our coastline, valuing it for all those other reasons that aren't just about making a buck out of it. And I think more people are switching on to that. They
and
realise
that was a national, if not international, trendsetter, wasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it was.
Done here.
Done here, yeah. A lot of the things that, and that's because of the community. People that come are drawn here want to see things done differently, and we've been able to deliver that, for the last couple of decades. So, some of the things we've done, I don't think people realise how important they are. I know some people are very obsessed with potholes and the quality of our roads, but some of the other things that we've done have kept us special in terms of the character and nature of the place, but also send out really good examples for other places. But it's hard sometimes to live here and look at the rest of the world and wonder why they're all so crazy. But we're so easy and relaxed, and I often in Parliament have to sort of take a few jibes about the crazy community of Byron when I talk about the positive things.
Well, they wouldn't. They would, wouldn't they? And these are parliaments.
But they all come here for holidays. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to get photos of them all and say, if you see this person...
I have never met a logger who picnicked in the plantation. But just driving up here from Coffs Harbour, here's these massive highway refurbishments going, and no place made for a train. Fast rail up the centre of it, and it's going to cost mega more. I mean, it's economically irrational. We're doing a $30 million study, thanks to the Greens, in the federal arena on high-speed rail, and the very obvious straightening out of that highway, with all the impact that is having, is the place where you'd put a straight new railway.
We tried. That was part of a strong submission that came from this area, but people get the wrong idea. It's built for trucks. It's not for us. It's for the trucking industry. That's the reality. But look, one of the key things that came out of that whole thing with the ALP were those terrible vicious attacks, and a lot of people said, well, what's the difference between the Greens and the ALP? What's the common ground, and what are the differences? People often ask, why should I vote for the Greens? The ALP have similar values.
Yeah, $100 billion over the next 10 years missing from schools and hospitals because the ALP collapsed in the wake of the pressure of three big coal and iron ore corporations in knocking out Treasury's recommended super profits tax. The Greens come in as the supporters of Treasury, while both the big parties ripped it down. There's a difference to start off with. I mean, that's before we get to the environment. And it's pretty obvious what the difference is. The big corporations can work, and I see a big change going on there, by the way, a big change. And to have Geoffrey Cousins, for example, advocating so strongly against Woodside's mega, he was an economics advisor to John Howard, against Woodside's gas factory is remarkable, and he's taken that company on, head on. So things are changing, but not at the rate we'd like.
Do you think it makes a difference if people actually write to these people? Can we get through to them in some way? Does it have an effect if they get personal letters?
Absolutely. And for example, the board of Woodside has to make its decision to go ahead with that gas factory, and I'll guarantee they're getting hardly any mail from the public.
Good old-fashioned
All
snail
you've got
mail?
to do is press the button, and there they all are. They need letters from people. And I'll tell you, the most potent thing still is a handwritten letter with a picture.
Yep.
That really...
And your own story, your own personal point of view. Because now in Parliament, if you're getting a lot of letters or a lot of emails all on one issue, you just categorise that word and they all go directly into a file. No one sees them.
That's all.
Yeah, account. So the old-fashioned, you know, as Bob said, the handwritten letter, the putting it in an envelope, putting a stamp on it, and often, and I've seen it done around here when we've done letter writing campaigns, people drawing pictures on the envelope or,
yes,
you know, doing something interesting.
So that everybody along the way sees it.
Everyone goes, oh, look at this. Drawing attention to yourself. And a shy bunch of people like us would find that hard, but, you know, give it a go. But yeah, that is still a very effective means of engaging with people, isn't it?
It is, Jan, and not being shy about it's a good thing. Yeah. But Talkback Radio, letters to the editor, as I said, I wrote one to the Sydney Morning Herald, well, who knows, but they're still the most read page after the front page by all the politicians are the letter columns, and so really good. And I heard the local newspapers run the story about Paul Watson absconding from bail in Germany. Well, there's hardly been any coverage of that in the Australian media, and it's a very, very important story. So good on local media when that happens.
Yeah, we're lucky here with our media. So what's the prognosis for the Greens? What's the future, and do you think we're going to get squeezed out because we've been successful, or is there room for us to emerge through this two-party sort of reality that we live in?
No, Jan, everywhere since Michael Field told me in the queue to the turkey at Christmas in 1983 that you've got nowhere to go but down, I've heard that at every stage. And look at us. Yeah. It's natural, you see, and it's not personality or person dependent. It's just a natural feeling. The Greens parties around the world have risen by spontaneous combustion. Nobody went round saying you should. And I spoke with Dorothy Tekwe, who leads the Greens in Papua New Guinea today, and lost the election in a very corrupt seat with the deputy prime minister's been re-elected. And what a struggle up there! But she's the face of things to come. And I just think it's Mongolia. There's 3 Greens in the parliament, the first Asian country to have them, and they're where we were 30 years ago. But it's changing, and we're going over the African Greens on the rise. Africa, 6-7% growth rate in pure economic terms at the moment. The world's changing rapidly, and as it does, the Greens will become more potent. And if we fall, if we get weak, if we slip back, another party will come along and replace us. That's the simple way. So the ideology of the Greens, our charter's there for everybody to see, are a real charter for the rest of this century, and if we don't deliver on that, somebody else will. That's the intelligent revolution offer, which is the alternative to where we'll go if we keep up on the consumptive road. So it's logical. We're just common sense.
But what about when the two major parties decide to gang up and...
Yeah, well, nothing gets them together faster than a threat from the
They
Greens
both hate us.
or a threat to their superannuation. That'll get legislation through the Parliament very quickly. Oh, look, they changed the constitution in Tasmania to try and keep the Greens out, and there's moves now to give preferences. So Labor wants to preference Tony Abbott ahead of the Greens. That's what the New South Wales right is advocating right now. And if it's not this time, it'll be next time. They will cross-preference to get rid of the Greens.
Yeah.
People who vote Labor are going to get a preferencing going on for Tony Abbott, and it's advocated by not a few people like Michael Danby, the member for Melbourne Ports at the moment, is openly saying that's a consideration we have to take up. And they did it just at the last elections in Victoria.
So why did the Sex Party go with them and not us? Does
Uh,
everyone realise that the Sex Party got about 10%?
7% they ended up with, and it was crucial.
And they went to the ALP instead of
because
the
the
Greens.
ALP got to them first and signed an agreement with them, and by the time I rang them up, they said, oh no, we waited, but we'd signed an agreement with the ALP. And then the ALP cooed after the election and say they outmanoeuvred the Greens. And it's all done back there in the preferencing back doors, and principle, and on that occasion, principle didn't matter. It was an exchange of preferences. We'll get some knockbacks along the way. We've had a few of those, Jan, haven't we? And there's more to come. But every time they try to make it harder for us, we seem to grow. So
Well, that's what happened in Tasmania, wasn't it? When they tried to, they changed the constitution to try and squeeze you out, and
they've knocked Christine Milne out,
Yeah.
but Peg Putt stayed there, and Christine's now leading the party nationally. And what a huge integrity that woman has. And she feels everything, but what an enormous integrity she's got. And we are the only party with the majority of women. And 80% of the Green staff are female. It's just, there's no test to it. It's just something to do with the change of things in the air. I don't know what it is. But
it just happens, doesn't it?
It does.
And that's a great thing. I think Christine's been really well received. She's come across when that nervousness. I remember when you resigned, and there were people crying that day. Oh, it's so sad. What's going to happen to the Greens? And other people. My first response was, "Great, good on you for."
Yeah, thanks, Jan.
You know, you've given so much, and I thought for you and Paul to be able to have some time and to do. And I know you'll do lots of other great things, but there were people I met in that first period. They were so sad and scared that your leadership is what the Greens is about, and that
and
was going to fall away.
No, it's a leadership of ideas, and we've got that very strongly established. And thank goodness. Can't depend on any individual, but like-mindedness, and there's a lot of it in this room tonight, is going to see us grow right into the future.
But I think that's what I was saying initially. That's what was great about the way it happened, because I think it shocked a lot of people. They saw something they didn't expect. You know, they saw that transition, and then Christine, so well received.
Yeah.
And, you know, people adjusted and went, oh, this is good. This is positive. We're seeing a team. We're seeing Bob going off and doing Bob Brown Foundation.
That's right.
Lots of other things to do. But the feedback I got from people was that this was a surprise, that they saw a good political process rather than the negative.
Yeah.
And I think that's buoyed a lot of people to think that there's something inherently different about the Greens, that we can do that sort of stuff rather than the fighting and the negativity.
And we'll continue to. And the Bob Brown Foundation, I lost the argument over the name because
I wonder why.
When I'm dead and gone, it won't matter. But it's to help impecunious greenies like Miranda. And this trip to, which is hugely important, Broom's galvanised by the Sea Shepherd coming round there, and the Gallara Baloo people as well. But that's costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're short. We're short of money of that. Well, we can try and help raise the funds through this foundation to help really activist, good, well thought out green campaigns that are making a difference. And by green, I mean that in the widest sense. One of the lawyers tried to get it out, but one of the aims of the foundation is to increase the overall level of happiness on the planet. And
Yeah, we like that one. We agree with that.
Yes.
We've got Helena here with her Economics of Happiness
yes.
film. And that foundation, though, if people donate to that, can they specify what they'd like their funds to support? Are you?
Yeah, for example, those two options. And it's not tax deductible, and we've applied for that, but I'm not sure it's a good thing, because then they can threaten to take away tax deductibility.
Yeah. So you're asking people to give because they care,
yes.
not because they're going to get that bit taken off their tax.
It's a difficulty, that one.
I bet there's a few people in the room here who will go home and check that website and think, I'm going with Bob. I mean, put your money there. I mean, we've had, like you said, when you were here last time, and the support for the Tassie Racing campaign. Every time you've been here, you've had a campaign. Funny that.
Yeah.
You always come with a campaign. And we always go, oh, and everyone supports it. But we used to have the Nomadic Action Group, Ian and some other people in this room.
Well, he came down and supported us.
That's right. Went down to the Franklin, went to the Daintree.
Terania Creek and Nightcap. And,
So are people welcome to go over to Broome and help in that campaign?
Oh, absolutely. And the protest over there is going to go on for many months. And it's only after the next wet season that Woodside's going to make its final decision, so that people can and also can support Environs Kimberley is the collection of environment groups over there, so you can find their website, and it's very illustrative of both the protests that have been taking place and all the matters I've been talking about that are so important to the Kimberley and its future.
For you personally, it doesn't sound like you've got any doubts about retiring. You're very clear about that and lots of things to do. But when you look back on all those years, the federal parliament, the state parliament, what were the highlights? I mean, what makes it all worthwhile doing that? The things that you really feel that you're able to make a difference, and then some lowlights.
Well, the highlight, I don't want to sound, this always sounds a bit trite or...
We won't tell anyone.
No, but it's about you see. It's knowing people like you, Jan, and my friend Ian, who was there for the right upriver in the Franklin blockade, and the people who here tonight who've come up, 3 or 4 who were at the Franklin blockade. But mixing with like-minded people, and the world's changed since I got into politics. I got so much abuse early on. I couldn't walk up the street in Hobart or Devonport, or for that matter after I got a bit better known in Melbourne, without having angry people say, it's all gone, all gone.
Yeah. Well, you've got to be one of the most loved and respected people in this country, and I think you saw that.
To see this change.
No.
Okay.
You've made a difference, but it's even here. I often tell people, new people that come to the area, and they say, oh, I love Byron, and then next time you see them, it's like, oh, I'm not really happy about the potholes, or where's something else that they miss from the city, and they like the area, but they don't realise the struggle that it's been. The fact that a lot of people that have lived here for a long time, 20 years ago, we were all getting abused and sworn at because we were taking away jobs and we didn't care about people. So things have changed a lot in a relatively short time, haven't they?
And that's that change that's being emphasised by the way in which children at schools work on it. No, being at Coffs Harbour High School, and they're not all youngsters there. There's pizzazz about the planet. And two girls that have been teenagers asked me from various directions, how do you put up with being depressed? And how do you deal with the way the world is? And that's why I like talking to them, because you must tangle with that question. You can't avoid it. And you can turn on to classical music for a while and so on, but the world's there. And I always say to them, and this has been a learning process too, Jan, look after yourself. Really don't, if you want to go to the pictures and you want to, go looking for a new relationship, whatever, take time out and make sure you do it. Don't be too anguished by what's going on. If time's that short, don't worry. So it's very important, the Emily Goldman dictum from the end of the 19th century, I don't want your revolution if I can't dance. Very important to have fun along the way.
It's true. So you've avoided the bit about...
Oh, the low life. I mean the low lights.
I don't know, the bad bits. What are the things, there's got to have been some disappointment, the things that...
I think, yes, there are, and the media is a big one. It's letting us down terribly, and it's become, we've got newspapers, not newspapers, and I'm talking about the Metropolitan Press and the Murdoch media in particular. And I did see a copy free today when we had a cup of coffee here in Byron, there in Byron, and it's a terrible rag. It's nasty, it's negative, it's destructive, and it's the most potent political newspaper in the nation. And I thought just a little bit away from it, and you look at that and you read. And there, it started this week. Julia Gillard and I've got along very well on a business relationship, very different to each other, but a certain respect in there which has helped make that relationship survive the test of fire this far down the line. But there they are, they started the week, or the weekend, lambasting Gillard because she had refused apparently a Liberal suggestion that she should have a new tax to pay for the National Disability Scheme. Now here, they have been backing Tony Abbott on no tax, no new tax, no taxes, no new taxes, lower taxes, all the way down the line. Then she gets lambasted for not having new taxes. I just think but people are aware to that. That's why, unfortunately, there's good people in the media, but they are...
You actually spoke out in support of the treatment of her by the media.
Yeah, I did. I think a degree of it was sexist.
Yep. And you were the only one, I think, that was brave enough to say that. And she denied it, I think. She said, no, I don't think so. But
yeah, but you have to, don't you?
Yeah,
and
you do.
Otherwise you're then seen...
I do know about that one.
Because, Jane, as you know, otherwise you're then seen as playing the victim.
Yeah.
They get you that way. So it's a tough...
But they've been tough on her, and I think a lot of people would think unfairly. And particularly those women that do take positions, public positions or leadership positions in business or wherever, they still feel that there is a degree of sexism in this country. But when it plays out at that level, the way she's being treated, it's hard to watch, and I think it's difficult for women to then think about standing up and doing things.
Why would you?
Yeah, why would you?
I think it is. It is tough for men too in politics. I mean, you either do what the movers and shakers want you to do, or you'll cop it. But she's got an amazing resilience. I spoke to her, but Paul and I went to the lodge with Tim and Julia and had a last dinner when we left. She asked us round, and
nice.
so that was good. And I had a piano next to the fire, so I played the Earth song on the piano, which she said that's never been played since I was here, except by Tony Burke, the Minister for the Environment. He must have had a go on the ivories.
Oh, nice.
But I said to her, you've got a certain inbuilt resilience there, which is amazing. And she said I shouldn't be telling secrets here, but she got it from her father, she reckoned. And matter of fact, I mean, of course, we're halfway through dinner, and Paul raised the subject of same-sex marriage.
Just out of the blue.
And for the life of me, I cannot understand why she doesn't support getting rid of that discrimination. And most of her voters wanted to get rid of that discrimination.
So did she tell you why?
No different to what she said in public.
Really?
Yeah, it's inexplicable. But you put that aside and you stay on a... I've been to see Tony Abbott and, had conversations with him, and no doubt there would have been more in the future, but and who knows?
So you found her good to work with?
I found that what she said she would do, she's done.
Yeah.
That's pretty unusual in politics, and I respect her for that. And we've had huge, including the carbon price thing. She's been to hell and back about that. It was great to see the opinion poll change around this week, where now the people who are opposed to the carbon tax has fallen, almost halved, suddenly, because they found after 1st of July the roof hadn't fallen in, as Tony Abbott and the Australian told them it would do.
Yeah, crazy, all of that. And how do you see her future? What's going to happen with that whole leadership thing? Do you have a thought on it?
I don't. I leave that to the Labor Party.
Yeah. And the idea that what they're doing is likely to leave us all with Tony Abbott. I mean, is it? Is it possible that they are destroying the brand, even though it's not a brand? They're destroying the public's support for her so greatly, and they're doing it to themselves, that we will end up with a change of government.
Well, history's like that, and so an Abbott government's is the most likely possibility next year at the moment. And yes, but people get what they vote for.
Does that inspire everyone to get active and involved and do something? I mean, really, and particularly in New South Wales, and so a couple of the states where we've got. I shouldn't be political, should I? But we've got a coalition government.
I've never known you to be political.
No, they're just watching things wound back where we've got state and federal. It's a very strange time when that happens. It's scary.
Yes, but these conjunctions come and then they go. And so, I remember Malcolm Fraser being elected for the second time in '78, and there was a wake down in Hobart and so on, but he stopped whaling, saved Fraser Island. You never dealt with the Vietnamese boat people in a fashion that would be seen now as left-wing radical in this country. So you just don't know what's going to happen. But I would think there's at least an equal likelihood of Tony Abbott going before the next election as there is of Julia Gillard. Who knows?
We hope. Can I just
But Christine Milne will be there at the next election.
That's right. Just stop, have a break for a minute. You can have a glass of water. Can we just ask our Green campaign team just to stand at the front so everyone can see their gorgeous faces? You've got a leaflet on your thing. Everyone knows Simon. Simon's been on council for the last term, doing it tough. He's our mayoral candidate. And Rose Wanshop, everyone knows Rose. You've seen. She's been a strong voice for the environment and for community for a long time. And crazy as it seems, we've got a recycled councillor, Duncan Day. Coming back for more, Duncan. It was that much fun, hey? Yeah. And some great new people. I'm always heartened when people come forward and want to do this crazy thing called local government, and particularly proud when they want to join the Greens and represent the Greens. So we've got 3 new people who have put their hands up to that. We've got Jim Beatson on the end. Jim's a legend. Everyone knows his history from Triple Z and absolute wonder in at the community centre and fundraiser extraordinary. Claire Hocking, who's also doing beautiful work. In at the community centre, and then Rhonda Kong, who's doing Liberation Larder. So a lovely mix of people that the Greens are really proud to put before the community and say, a new team, great mix of people who are out there in the community doing good work, judge them by their deeds, They're all good people, so you can sit down now and we'll get on. But you'll be seeing more of them. And the other really exciting thing that's happening on a date that I have to check, I can't believe that it was 16 years ago when we all crowded into little community halls to watch what David Bradbury had been doing, going along to all those council meetings and talking to people and developing The Battle for Byron, the story about how tough it was to keep Byron special, to protect and preserve. We'd had the, if you think life's tough now, the 91 to 95 council was hellish. Majority Conservatives who thought progress was good and they wanted to unwind all the good work that had been done previously. But in 95, David's film got shown in every little hall, and we're really pleased that, and I watched it recently too with some people who got a real shock when they saw it. But only 16 years ago, but on next Friday, the 10th of August, you can see it again at the Community Centre. David's going to be speaking about the experience of making the film, what it was like being in Byron at that time. You'll see a lot of familiar younger faces, and sadly a few of our great community leaders who are no longer with us. But that'll be a terrific night, and that's 6 o'clock at the Community Centre. The Battle for Byron. Even though I don't like militaristic terms, we are a party of peace and non-violence, I'll accept that Battle for Byron one.
Yeah.
And thank you, David, for having done all that work in documenting our history. But thank you. So we'll finish up with just a few little things. Like, I was going to ask you about your non-computer use, your Mr. No Technology. It's always, driven me nuts that you've been able to get away with it. I'm still not doing social media till I get a bit more time, and then maybe I will. But you have got an iPad.
Yeah, and I'll get to use it. I made a decision that I was better off not getting into computers because I'm an information nerd or something. I would just go into the weather section. I could stay there 24 hours of the day. But
you're right. People get lost. You go off. You can spend so much time just.
Yeah, I wanted to think about being in national politics. I wanted to think about it and be able to think about the strategies that were involved and think out the policy base and the responses that we needed. So I've written, every press release I've gone out has been written in longhand, and somebody's converted it for me. And every tweet in more recent times, I've just dictate that and somebody out it goes. And Facebook submissions and speeches, all written in longhand.
Do you keep your longhand version?
No, but I think other people have been through rubbish bins and so on and collected quite a bit of it. And all the archives are going to the National Library that people have saved, so glory. I've been asked about autobiographies, I just wouldn't write one. I'm a forward thinker and I'll leave that to other people. And writing a book about what I did and what I did next and why secret expose on some political opponent is not interesting to me. So I know I'm going to get a few requests from publishing houses in the next couple of days at the Writers' Festival. I'm into poetry and philosophy and to looking at campaigns. I'll write about those, and there's a lot of archival material there though. So that's all in good hands. And
other people's hands.
Yes, well, provided the writing can be read. I spent 6 years at medical school in Sydney developing a new writing technique.
Okay, one of those. Yes, we know about that. So with the retirement, there's the Bob Brown Foundation that's travelling to other places and giving them the support. Are there any other?
Yeah, Paul and I think we might travel around to the bush heritage properties around the country that came out of Liffey in the 1990s and take the pack and lie out under the stars and listen to the dingoes howl and take
That'd be fun. That'd be fun to see all those. So how many are there?
Or these days there's scores of them and a million hectares, and that organisation has a staff of about 100 and is turning over, I don't know, 10 or 12 $1 million a year, which is using to buy new ecological reserves. It's a private national park system, and it's going.
And the only one you can rely on that not going to get overturned for shooting or something.
Yeah, well,
They are solidly
isn't that
protected, aren't
extraordinary?
they?
It's quite extraordinary that that's the way it will be.
And that point about you always being positive, I know you've said a lot about it tonight, but is there something that really helps you do that?
Yes. Spend a night out under the stars.
Yep.
I was talking with Miranda the other day about Scorpio being straight over the top. You know, at the moment, if you look at the Milky Way, the tail comes out of Scorpio. It's like a big S, and then there's the arrowhead of the scorpion. And across from that is the Southern Cross with the emu man's head next to it. And then, you know, just sit out there at night looking at the stars, and there's always things going on up there. I saw a phenomenal shooting star the other night, and thinking about people who've been doing this. We don't anymore, by and large, and the lights are on, and we're missing out on it. And that moon for the last few nights, hasn't it been just so brilliant? Just so brilliant. And so...
You really notice it when you go to cities and then you come home and you think, wow, look at all that. You know, it's such an amazing thing that a lot of people don't have that experience, and we do.
And going to the pictures. We went and saw Magnolia Hotel, is that what it's called? Marigold, thank you. I was determined to go to something where they didn't cut people's arms off or gouge their eyes out. That fitted the bill. And there's a few others. Ian told me about the film on Keats. I'd love to see that.
The Jane Campion.
Jane Campion.
Bright Star. Is it Bright Star?
Yeah. And have you seen the YouTube thing on Starry, Starry Night? And it's got the portraits by Van Gogh. And, you know, you were punished for your sanity. My brother, big brother Ben, sends us clips. He spends time getting delightful clips off and sending them around. So that one landed in our lap the other day. So lots of time to look at things that before I just couldn't see. A walk by the shore, you know, we're going to do some walking in the Tasmanian mountains in the coming spring and summer.
Well, speaking of films, what did you think of The Hunter?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And you know, they had real conservationists and real
Dafoe
loggers
film?
in there. And if you want to see how it feels being a protester in Tasmania, go and see The Hunter. There's more being hunted than the Tasmanian tiger. And because I went to Tasmania to look for the Tasmanian tiger and to see Lake Pedder in '72, it really struck a chord.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was a fabulous film because it did portray a very real situation of that conflict.
Yes.
I thought that was well done.
Yeah, it is. They were going to use the house at Liffey for the main base for it, but the flood came down the river and the bridge was gone, and they used one at Meander. Kim Booth's place.
Yeah, Kim Booth. Well, Peter Wishlawson was here on the weekend. He was here for the Splendour Festival. He spoke on a panel.
That's my replacement in the
Bob's
Senate. He's a great guy.
Has everyone seen Peter Wishlawson? I think he's in the paper this week. It won't take long before he won't be able to get around without being recognised, but he said he was enjoying it here.
And boy, does he make a good wine.
Yes.
3 Wishes Vineyard, if you can get a hand on a bottle of that from Tassie. And it's right next to where they want to build the pulp mill. That's why Peter got involved, really.
And he was saying, he told us that you were the only one that came and visited. Out of all the politicians, Bob's the only one that turned up. And I often say to people,
I know a good wineman.
Paul googled and found that he was a good winemaker. Now, when you did say that you were going to resign, and it was so well received, and Paul got to have a say about what his hopes were. There was something about you were going to do some more washing up or housework.
Duties. Yes, well,
I bet that didn't happen. Did it happen? Not yet.
Well, I have been doing a bit more.
He just keeps coming up with new ideas to take off and do things.
It's a bit like the typing, old skills never go away. I've had a thank you for the tea towels. We've got a big pile of them. And a friend, Anne, around the road, arrived at home with a new apron with trees all over it.
Nice.
So I'm getting the hint.
You get the hint, good. Well, as I said at the beginning, we thank you so much for your contribution and your commitment, and for Paul, the support. And we know that you wouldn't be able to do what you've done without the great support of Paul and a whole bunch of people.
Absolutely.
So we wish you well. We hope you relax and enjoy, and keep us informed about what we all should be doing and be informed about, because we will. We'll still follow the lead, won't we? We trust you.
Thank you again for all you've done. Thank you.